Tying up a very well-known nymph pattern today. This is called the bird's nest, and this is, in my opinion, got to be one of the easiest nymphs you'll ever tie at the vise. It's just very, very simple. A little bit of wood duck, lemon wood duck. You could use some mallard flank instead for the tail and the legs, and it's just a dubbed body with a rib on it. The bird's nest originally was tied back in the late 1950s, I think it was. A gentleman by the name of Cal Bird came up with it, and it has produced and taken off since then. It's just a very nondescript nymph, buggy looking food kind of thing that a fish would eat. You can do these in different colors and everything, but it has done very, very well. So that's the bird's nest. I'll get started tying. I'm going to get started with the bird's nest. This is the Mustad 9671 in a size 10. It's a 2x long. This is a streamer hook, actually. I think the original recipe calls for a 2x long nymph hook, 2 to 3x long nymph hook, but I'm using this little streamer hook. I want to go ahead and debarb the hook, and before I attach my thread, I'm going to put some lead wire on here. I'm using a .020 lead wire. You don't have to put any lead on this. I have seen these bird's nest flies tied in all kinds of configurations with beads, cones, all kinds of things. Keeping this one rather simple. With just about 10 wraps of lead under the body on this one. $11, I guess, if you count that tag back there. You could use a heavier lead if you want, or a lighter one. It's up to you. This is going to help to get it down a little bit. I'm going to position that generally a little bit forward of the center of the hook. I'm going to attach my thread. For thread, I'm using a UTC, Wapsi UTC Ultra thread in the 70 Denier in a burnt, what is this, a rusty brown. That's what it is. I didn't think it was a burnt orange. Get some wax on my thread. And attach my thread just a little bit behind the eye of the hook. Just a few wraps back, move that lead right up to it, and then I'm going to reach around getting my thread. See, you got to be careful, because if you keep wrapping up against it, you're going to push that lead backwards. As you can see, even with my finger up on it, it tends to push that backwards. You want to just loosely reach around and get back behind those lead wraps so that you can secure the thread back there, and then start getting a thread dam in the back and in the front. Thread dam just smooths that off a little bit so that when you're putting in the dubbed body and the thorax, it doesn't have a ledge to fall off of. Now I got my thread at the back. I'm going to tie in the tail. The tail, as well as the legs on the bird's nest, are a lemon wood duck. You don't need a lot for this, just a little bit. So I'm just going to take maybe about a dozen or so barbs off the side of one of these feathers. I want to even up the tips, peel those off, kind of clump those together, and I'm going to tie those in so they're about a shank long off the back. I'll wind forward a little bit, not quite up to the lead. Trim away the excess, wind that down up to the lead wraps, and then start coming back. Before I get all the way back, I'm going to tie in my wire. The abdomen does have a wire rib in it that helps to reinforce it. I'm using a medium UTC ultra wire in a copper color. I'm going to tie this in so the tip is right back to the rear portion of the lead wraps. That is simply to help to fill that space in a little bit and smooth out the body, the underbody, just a little. I'll bring my thread back down to the end here, and I'll put in my dubbing. I'm not certain if the original, when Cal Bird created this back in the 50s, I don't know if he used Australian possum or not. A lot of people use it these days, but I've also seen this fly tied with ice dub, with sow scud dubbing. I've seen it tied with hare's ear, just a number of different materials. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, in the intro, I'm actually using this is the underfur from some craft fur. When I did the video on the Bavirka's mantis shrimp many years ago, I tied a bunch of those up for different things. And I mentioned in that video saving this underfur in your craft fur because you can use it for dubbing. I particularly like it because it's a synthetic. It doesn't absorb as much moisture, but you can use whatever you want to use. Like I said, I've seen this fly, and once you see it done, you can do this in all kinds of different things, some SLF or whatever, and just have some fun with it. It's just going to be a very shaggy nymph. Does not have to represent anything particularly. It will look like any kind of mayfly nymph, maybe a stonefly nymph. You could do this in other colors if you want to do some olive, brown, black, something like that. Right here, I'm just putting some of this craft fur, underfur, for lack of a better term, onto my thread. I've got probably about a 4-inch, 5-inch dubbing noodle here. This is going to be my abdomen. Don't skimp on the dubbing on this fly. You want to go ahead and make it kind of thick and pronounced. So that's the end of the abdomen there. I'm going to go ahead and wrap in my rib. I'm going to get maybe about 4-5 turns maybe at the most, but the rib gives a little bit of weight. It gives a little bit of color, segmentation in the back here. Don't worry if your taper on that body is not exactly perfect. If you've got some spots that are kind of bulging and some that seem a little skinny, because none of that is going to matter in just a moment. So my thread's right back here at the end of the thorax, right beginning of the abdomen. We're going to tie in the legs now. I'm using some more lemon wood duck. We're going to tie in the legs. I have seen some people who tie these in kind of like a pheasant tail nymph or something, where they isolate just a few of the barbs and they tie them in off to the side like this for legs on the side. I've also seen more videos, and this is how I was taught this years ago, was to just take the whole feather right here. We're going to wrap this in. I want the ends of my legs to go back down, maybe the back end of the abdomen. You'll see here. Just going to wrap those around like this, gently wrap in, before I do that, some more wax on my thread. So this is just kind of, a real quick and easy way of getting some legs on this. And again, the whole point is this thing looks like a wreck when you get done tying it. and we tease fibers out and everything else. So having some of that all around is just fine. Oh. Now that slid off there, probably because I did not have enough wax on my thread on the base of that. No problem. Take a few wraps off here. Put some more wax on there. Throw some on there. You know, these things happen in fly tying. I could turn around and start the whole video over and do it again so it's all flawless and perfect, but that's not the reality in fly tying. Even if you are somebody who's been tying for many, many years, there's some times where, you know, it just doesn't quite go right. Your hands don't do what you want them to. The material doesn't do what you want. So you got to sit there and fudge with it and mess with it. Now I have a little bit of a gap right down under here. I'm using my thumbnail to push some of that around. But again, as you will see in just a second, that is not going to matter. Trim that away. I'm going to put some more wax on my thread. I'm going to secure all this down right up against the abdomen. Coming forward, smoothing that off just a little bit. Now we're going back to some dubbing. You can do this in a beadhead version if you want to. I like the craft fur also because the fibers on this are fairly long. So as you'll see when we tease this out in a little bit, you're really going to get a bushy, shaggy looking fly, which is what you want. That's why it's called a bird's nest. Even though the guy who came up with it, his last name was Bird, it kind of looks like a bird's nest. I'm going to wrap that on down towards the eye and back. This just builds up that thorax just a little bit. Not quite wanting to stay on there the way I want it to. That's okay. I'm going to run my thread right up behind the eye of the hook here. Put in a whip finish. Looks kind of like a mess. Certainly doesn't look like a nice polished nymph. But we're going to fix that. Some head cement. Just right on the end there. Now you're going to take your dubbing brush. Whether you use, you know, some Velcro glued down to a stick or something like that, whatever you want, you're going to take your dubbing brush and start brushing this out from the front on back. Don't be afraid to rake down over that thorax a little bit and get some of those out. Remember I mentioned you don't have to worry if the thorax has got a little bit of a bulge in one wrap and a little thin on another one. It seems like the more you tease this out, the buggier this fly looks, the better it performs. If you've been fly fishing for many years, one thing that you'll learn is, or have already learned, is that it seems like the more beat up a fly is, the more effective it is. And that's the whole idea behind the bird's nest. It just looks like, you know, anything nondescript, any kind of little thing bouncing along the bottom, something a fish would eat. And they seem to agree because it works very, very well. So that's a bird's nest. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vice today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. And what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.